Namaste and welcome to our first Navaratri broadcast, chapter 1 of the Devi Matmaya. Let's begin with the opening puja. Om Pandarikaksham Sabhyavyanta Sushi Om Shuklam Balaram Vishnum Se Shivanam Shatobhijam Prasannavanadandaya et Sarva Vignopasantaye Jai Ganesha. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Jai Guru. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivaro Mukshya Mamritat. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Jayanti Mangalakali Bhadrakali Kapalini Durga Shama Shiva Datri Swasvada Namostute Jai Tvam Devi Chamunde Jai Bhutita Harani Jai Sarvagate Devi Kalaratri Namostute. Namaste. So today we're going to go through the first two chapters of the Chandipat, also known as the Devi Matmaya. I'm going to be using this translation by Swami Satchidananda Sarasvati of Devi Mandir in California. And I would highly recommend that you look at the Devi Mandir website. There's all sorts of wonderful resources. Also, if you happen to have some extra money, they could really use some donations. Their main temple was recently burned to the ground in one of the recent California wildfires. Before we begin, and I'm sorry we're beginning a little bit late. I was supposed to have an important package delivered, and UPS has obviously made a rather serious mistake. So it took me a while to get a claim form going. But the Devi Matmaya, all three sections. So the first section, which is actually the first chapter, which is dedicated to Ma Kali, concerns two demons named Madhu and Kataba. And Madhu and Kataba can be translated to too much and too little. Another translation I've seen is drunkenness and stupidity. The chapter will also give an introduction to the overall scripture. The second section that will begin at 1 o'clock when we do the second chapter concerns Ma Durga fighting the buffalo demon Mahishasura and his armies. Mahishasura means male buffalo, and Swami Satchidananda Sarasvati translates the name to refer to the great ego. Think of in this part of the world a stubborn bull or ox, maybe. And then the third section that will begin, I believe, at the 4th chapter, concerns Ma Devi fighting the demon armies of 2 demon generals, Sumba and Nisumba, whose names mean self-conceit and self-deprecation. Think how many times those demons have affected our lives. So let's begin with chapter 1. So I'm going to read the chapter in English, and then I'm going to invite you to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and meditate while I read the passage again, chanting it in Sanskrit. Om Jai Mata Di. Om, we bow to she who removes all difficulties. And now the 700 verses in praise of she who removes all difficulties. Chapter 1, Application. Om, presenting the first episode, the creative capacity is the seer. The great remover of darkness is the deity, that's Kali. Gayatri, syllables of the verse, is the meter. Nanda is the energy. Raktadantika is the seed. Fire is the principle. Rigveda is its intrinsic nature and the satisfaction of the great remover of darkness. This first episode is being applied in recitation. Bearing meditation. Bearing in her 10 hands the sword of worship, the discus of revolving time, the club of articulation, the bow of determination, the iron bar of restraint, the pike of attention, the sling, the head of egotism, the conch of vibrations. She has 3 eyes and displays ornaments in all her limbs. Shining like a blue gem, she has 10 faces. I worship the great remover of darkness, Ma Kali, whom the lotus-born creative capacity praised in order to slay too much and too little, Madhu and Kataba, when the supreme consciousness was in sleep. Om, we bow to she who tears apart thought, Chandika. Om, Aing, and the sage Markandeya, who wrote this scripture, said, he who belongs to all colors, tribes, and castes, the son of the light of wisdom, is known as the 8th manifestation of wisdom. I describe his origins at length. Listen. With the grace of the supreme goddess, the great measurement of consciousness, the son of light, he who belongs to all became the highly eminent master of the 14th path of the day of the infinite. On this subject I speak. In times of old, in the period ruled by the king, he who makes himself radiant, the king was also named the conveyor of good thoughts, born of the lineage of those who dwell in consciousness, and he had authority over all regions of the earth. He protected his subjects in the way of truth as the father was to his children. At that time, the kings who were the destroyers of worship became his enemies. King Good Thoughts moved against the destroyers of worship to engage in battle. Even though they were fewer in numbers, nevertheless, Good Thoughts was defeated. Then he returned to his own city, renouncing his authority over the earth, and continued to rule in his own land. But there, too, the powerful enemies pursued that illustrious one, and again he was attacked. The king's strength was severely depleted. His enemies were mighty, and his unscrupulous ministers took over the army and the treasury. Good Thought's sovereignty was lost, and therefore, riding alone upon his horse, he fled into the dense forest on the pretext of hunting. There he came upon a hermitage of a great wise master, the intellect of love, where he saw so many dangerous animals living together in greatest of peace. Many disciples of the great wise one enhancing the magnificence of the forest. The great wise one made him welcome there with respect, and the king wandered about the hermitage for some time. Then his contemplations were overcome with egotism and attachment, and he thought, the city that was my ancestors' protected in former times is now gone from me. Are my unprincipled employees protecting the righteously preserving the kingdom in my absence? And my foremost elephant, heroic and continually delighted, how fares he? Will not experience He will not experience the pleasures he enjoyed during my time. Those who followed me with this eternal way of offering wealth and food definitely may now be serving other kings who are spending without restraint and continual extravagance. And the king went into deeper contemplation of the loss of his wealth and his present situation. His mind became absorbed in pain, and his thoughts controlled by worldly attachments. There in the hermitage of the great teacher, he saw a businessman, and after greeting him asked, "Who are you, and what is the reason for your coming here? Why do you appear to be in such great sorrow, as though your mind is far from its goal?" asked the king in a pleasant voice and friendly spirit. And with words full of modesty and humble respect, the businessman replied to the king, and the businessman said, "Pure intuitive perception is my name, and I am a businessman born in the lineage of those who worship infinite energy. My wife and children have cast me out because of their greed for wealth, and have caused me to become an ascetic seeker of truth. I have been deprived of wealth, and my wife and sons have seized my estate. And having been cast out of my trusted kinsman and bound by sorrow, I have come into this forest, and now I don't know if happiness or unhappiness is with my children. Staying here, I am unaware of the activities of my family. Do they experience tranquility at present, or does discomfort reign? Are my sons observing good conduct, or are they behaving with evil and wickedness?" And the king said, "You've been cast out by your wife and children because of their avarice and greed. Why are your thoughts so bound in love for them?" And the businessman said, "Just as you were speaking to me, I was having the same thought. But what can I do? My mind does not entertain severity. They have sacrificed a father's love and affection for a master and kinsman in their greed for wealth, yet my mind joins them all in affection. Though knowing this, the great learned one, I fail to understand how. My contemplations are disposed to love even characterless relations because of their actions. I heave a sigh and feel dejection and despair. But what can I do? My mind does not become hard even for those who are devoid of love for me." And the sage Markandeya said, "Then together the two, pure intuitive perception, the businessman, and the noble monarch, good thoughts, the king, arrived in a circular sacrificial area in the presence of the great wise master. Observing the proper customs and congenialities for learning, they sat down and engaged in conversation. And the king said, 'You who have united with the infinite self, I wish to ask only one question of you, and please be pleased to speak on it. My reflections are without control and give much pain to my mind. I have great attachment to the kingdom and to every aspect of the status that is gone from me. But even with this knowledge, in the manner of one who is ignorant, I still feel pain. Why is that, O great learned one? And here this humble man, cheated and deceived by his wife and children and employees, and cast out, even deserted by his own relations, still he maintains the greatest affection for them. Thus, both of us are feeling pain. Even though we see the defeats in our contemplations, nevertheless, our minds are drawn into attachment and egotism. What is it, O exalted one, that causes such ignorance, even in the presence of our wisdom and understanding? He and I are fools without the capacity of discrimination. And the Rishi, the sage, said, O great light of luminous splendor, all that lives is knowledge of objects perceived by our senses. But these objects of senses are perceived differently by all beings. Some beings are unable to see the day, while others are unable to see the night. Still others have the capacity to see all equally as well in day and night. It is true that humans have a capacity of understanding, but not only humans. The knowledge is common to all animals, whether beasts of the forest or birds of the air. All living beings possess this understanding, just as human beings. Then, just as in humans, the capacity of understanding exists in all animals, and this is the general principle, that the understanding of the two is alike. Look at those birds. Though they have knowledge, because of attachment, they are ignoring their own hunger and are busy putting food into the mouths of their children. But supreme among men, humans are different, because they are desirous of obtaining reciprocal assistance from their children in their need. Can't you see that desire, in their greed, people are hurled into a whirlpool of attachment and a pit of delusion? By the great measurement of consciousness, who is the cause of all circumstance and all objects in the creation and their relationships, this is referring to the Divine Mother, for there is no need to wonder. The consciousness of the universe, the Supreme Lord, is put into sleep of divine union by the great measurement, and therefore the world is deluded by her. She is Supreme Goddess, the great measurement of consciousness, attracts the perceiving capacity of all sentient beings with such force as to thrust them into the ignorance of egotistic attachment. The universe is born from her, the perceivable world, with all that moves and moves not. And it is she who, after satisfaction, bestows upon humans the blessings of liberation. It is she who is ultimate knowledge, the cause of liberation of consciousness, the eternal existence, and she is the cause of bondage of consciousness to objects and their relationships, the full and complete, supreme overall sovereigns. Revered one, who is that goddess, the great measurement of consciousness? Whom do you speak? Tell us, O wise one, of the actions by which she is known. What is the cause of this goddess? What is her intrinsic nature? What of her birth? All this I wish to hear from you, most excellent among the knowers of self-existent beings. And the wise one said, she is eternal, and the gross world and all the individual phenomena are in it are her visible forms. In many ways, she is manifest. Hear of them from me. Notwithstanding that she is eternal and unborn, nevertheless, when the Divine One performs actions for the attainment of this cause, she becomes manifest in the world. At the end of the period of manifestation, when the gross world was indistinguishable potentiality, the great divine Lord of the universal consciousness, rested at the end of infinity in the sleep of divine union. Then, from the dirt in his ears, the perceiving capacity arose two terrible thoughts, known as Madhu, too much, and Kataba, too little. They were ready to slay the divine creative capacity who is seated on the lotus blossom in the navel of consciousness, the creative capacity, the ruler of all beings. So what this is describing, and many of you have probably seen this in different artistic renderings, is Lord Vishnu asleep upon his couch, and springing from his navel is a lotus, and upon this lotus is the creator, Lord Brahma. And in this particular scene, Lord Brahma is about to utter the creative syllable of Om to bring the universe into existence. But then there are these two demons, too much and too little, formed in the earwax of Lord Vishnu, and they're coming out, and they're going to become a threat. The creative capacity of all beings, that's Brahma, seeing the approach of the two thoughts and the causer of being indifferently asleep in divine union, then, with one pointed attention, he began to praise divine union from his heart. For the purpose of awakening the eyes of consciousness, the revered one, of brilliant light, extolled the ruler of the universe, creator of the perceivable world, cause of evolution and dissolution, the goddess of sleep, the unequaled energy of consciousness. And Brahma, the creative capacity, said, "You are oblations, and I am one with God. You are oblations of union with ancestors. You are oblations of purity and the consciousness of all sound. You are the eternal sense of all the letters and consciousness of the three vowels, Ah, O, Om, or Aing, Rim, Klim. You are the eternal half vowel in its special mode of pronunciation. You are the time of prayer. You are the bearer of light. You are the goddess above all beings born. The universe is sustained by you, and the perceivable world is created by you. You protect what you create, O divine goddess, and you destroy at the end. As the creator, you are the form of the creation, and the form of circumstance. You are its maintenance. Then at the conclusion, as the form of dissolution of perceivable existence, you are the almighty measurement of being, the great knowledge, the great measurement, the great intellect, the great recollection, the great ignorance too, and your ladyship, the great goddess, the great source of strength. You are nature and the three qualities that you manifest in all. The night of time, the great night, and the night of ignorance. You are prosperity. You are the consciousness of all. You are humility. You are the intellect, and you are the goal of knowledge. Modesty, increase, then complete satisfaction. You are peace and patient forgiveness. You bear the sword of wisdom and the pike of concentration, the club of articulation and the discus of revolving time, as you present a frightful form. You bear the conch of vibrations and the bow of determination, all weapons as well. You are mild and gentle and the ultimate of attractiveness and incomparable beauty. Above and beyond that, and even again superior, you are the supreme consciousness. Whatsoever exists in thought or perception, whether true or untrue. The energy of everything is all in you. When you can be sung, what can be sung in your praise? If he who is the evolution, circumstance, and delusion of the perceivable world is subject to sleep, and you have caused what can be sung in your praise, You caused the maintaining capacity and dissolving capacity in myself as well to wear bodies. Hence, for this reason, and for this cause, who is sufficient, has the sufficient ability to sing your praise, O divine goddess? You and your heavenly and bounteous manifestations have been extolled. Cause the ignorance of egotism to fall upon those two thoughts, those two demons, so difficult to understand. Madhu, too much, and Kataba, too little. Awaken the consciousness of the master of the world and rouse him from his sleep. Let him conquer these two great thoughts for me and beget wisdom. So we have this situation again where Lord Vishnu is asleep. Basically, he's in a state of yoga nidra. Brahma, the creator, is distressed by the presence of these two rather disruptive beings. And he's invoking the Divine Mother's help in waking up Vishnu to get rid of these demons. Brahma is too afraid to do his job, to utter the syllable Om to bring creation into existence. Really, what we're seeing here are aspects within the consciousness of the Divine Mother herself. So the part of her that creates and sustains are represented by Vishnu and Brahma. And think of times when we ourselves are maybe in some creative endeavor and we're not completely conscious to some important factor that's necessary to make that endeavor a success. And the sage said, thus praised by the pious worshipper, the goddess of rest, in order to awaken the awareness of the supreme consciousness to kill too much and too little, emerged from her dwelling in the eyes, mouth, nose, chest, arms, and heart. The immovable, imperceivable existence became visible to the creative capacity who is born of the unmanifest, freed by her the Lord of the world, the causer of being. He rose from his couch on the infinite ocean of being. He saw these two wicked warriors of great strength, too much and too little, marching forward from attack. So the Divine Mother was within Vishnu himself, just like she is present within us. And she can wake us from our sleep. Red-eyed with anger and ready for an instant to strike, they continued in their endeavor to devour the creative capacity, Brahma. Then the Lord who removes confusion rose and waged battle with the two. For 5,000 years, the all-pervading, omnipresent, eternal wrestled with them, arm in arm, and they became frenzied with their own strength, under the delusion of the great measurer of consciousness. Then they told the one of beautiful hair to choose them a wish. And the Lord of the universe said, if you are so satisfied with me, then both of you be slain by me now. And what other wish is regarded, this much I ask. And the sage said, thus, deceived, they saw the entire gross world was covered with the waters of strife. Seeing that, they said to the Lord of Lotus Eyes, conquer us in the place that is not inundated by the flood of desire. And the wise one said, saying, let it be so, the glorious one who bears the conch of vibrations, the discus of revolving time, the club of articulation, raised the two up upon his loins, and with revolutions of time severed their heads. Thus praised by the creative capacity, she manifested herself. Now I dictate more of the glory of the goddess. Listen as I speak to you. Aing. Om. So I said earlier that the Devi Matmaya really illustrates battles that take place within us here and here all the time. And think of how much trouble we get into when we leave out our perception of the divine. We leave out the knowledge that she's present here. And when we redevelop that knowledge, so many of these thoughts within us, those inner demons, they're dealt with, they're dispatched, they're transformed. Too much and too little, therefore, become balanced. Jema. So, thank you for listening. I invite you now to find a comfortable seated position. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Focus upon the sound of this chapter as it's being chanted, and let the sounds, the vibrations of the mantras take your consciousness to where it needs to be at this time. Om Sri Durgai Namah. Atta Sri Durga Saptasati Pratomadaya Dina Yoga. Om Pratamacharastya Brahma Rishi Mahakali Devata Gayatri Chanda Nanda Shakti Raktadandika Bijam Agni Statvam Rigveda Sarupam Sri Mahakali Pityarte Pratama Karita Jepe Vinyoga Dayanam Kadgam Chakra Gadasu Chapa Pratrigan Shulam Busandim Sira Shankam Samdaratim Kare Srinyamatam Sarvaga Busavritam Nila Madhya Nila Madhya Dusmaya Pada Dasakam Sevi Mahakalikam Yamastat Svapite Haro Kamalajo Hantam Madhum Katabam. Om Namas Chandakaye Om Ang Makandeo Vacha Sarvasri Sovyatanyo Yomono Kanyante Stama Nisama Tadutpatim Vistarad Gatamama Mahamaya Nobhavanayata Manvataradipa Sabhuva Mahabaga Sarvanasyorave Svarosye Natare Bhuvam Chatvama Samudabhava Sorato Nama Rajabut Samastek Siste Mandale Tasya Palajya Samyak Prabja Putra Nivarusyan Babhava Satravo Bupakola Vidvame Nastara Tasya Terbavad Yodamati Prabha Dandiya Nyarupesa Tayode Kolavidavam Sibirja Tata Svapura Mayutonila Disadipo Bhavat Aranta Samahabagas Tastara Prabalabire Matya Babatir Duster Dobasya Dorapabe Kosa Balam Chaportam Chatrabe sarvapuritata. Tato magevya yajana hastamaya sabupati. Ekihasya maroya jagama gananam vanam. Sa tatrasramama draksid jvala vajaya midhaya prasan salva pradikumaman muni sisyo prasobatam tastau kamchita kalamcha milminatana sakra itase tascha viram stasmin mune varerame so chintayatada tata tatra mahatma krishta chenanya mapuriva palitim purvam ma hinam puram haitat madhitayas terasad vrtir mata palyate nava najane saprabanome sorhate samada mama varsam yatatkan bogan pulasapese ye mana numgata nityam prasada dana bojana avritim durvam tedya kurvantyan yamadhim britam asmaya masaya givye vaslayata kurva dibi satyam yaetam samchita so tirukena kasyam kaso gamisyate echayan yacha satatam chinya yamasya pativa tatra viprasram abasye payasam dadasasa sapratistana kastvambo etuchas kamane traka sasukaiva kasmatavam dormanaiva lakshyese ikya kanya vastantaya bhupata pranayoditam prateyovacha satam vayasya prasayan vato nurpam vasya uvacha samadhirmama vasyo hamutpano daininam kule pudradir nirastacha daha lobhada sihubi vihin sacha dane dadra putre dadaya medanam vama mabaya getoduki nirtras japa bundhubihi soham nevedmi puranam kusyala kuslatmikam pravritim sarvajanam chadaranam chatra samstita kim nu tasem grihi kishma mahesimam kim nu sampratam katam te kim nu sadvrita durvita kim nu me sutta rajavacha yanirasto bhava mulabahe putra daradibir danaya tesyo kim bhavata senham abutat nate mahasam asanasam vasya uvacha eva metta devata prabhavava nasmadagantam vacha kim kromena badatate mama nistoritam maha yai samstajaha pritsenham dana lobher nirakrita pasti svajana haranam chahade tesveva me mana kime tanabi janame janapi mahamate yat prema pravanam chitam vignosa vape bandhuso tesyam krite me nisvaso dharmanasyam jajate karme kim yana manastes vipritisu nituram Makandaya uvacha tasatau sanhitau vipra tamitam samupastitau samadirnama vasyo sase cha pavita satana kritva tutau yatayanam yatharham tena sarvidam upavistau kalya kaschik chatrarusvasya parviditau rajalvacha bhagavama vamaham prastam icham vekyam vasdevatat Dukaya yaname manasya svachit taya tatam vina mama vitam gata rajyaskesva kilesvape janatopi yata nyasa kimatan muni satyama Yam cha nikrita porter darya brityasta tato jinita svajanena cha samstakastasyo haditata pitye eva mesa tatam chadvavap Yatana dokitao Dristadosepi visya mamatva krishta manasao tat kimintan mahabaga yanmoho yane noripi mamasya cha bhavet yasa vithkandasya murata risiruvacha Nyanamaste Samastraya Jaturvisyaya Gochare Visyayacha Maha Bhagyayate Chavam Patratik Pratak Divanda Pranicha Kachid Ratavandas Tatapare Kechidivatata ratao pranitude yadrudaya janino manoja satyam kim tutenahi kevalam yatohi janina sarvapaso prakshite megadaya jananam chatanam nusayanam Yatasam murga paksinam manusanyam cha yatasam trulemanat tatobayao nyane pisate piyatan pachangancha vachangusu kanamoksha dritman mohat pridyamanati kusada manosa mano javalagri shabalasa sutan prati lobat prakyum kaya nanvitam himna pasyate tatapi mata prate mogate nipata mahamaya prabesvena masara siti karina tanatra vismayo karo yoga nidra jagatpate mahamaya haschaya tayo samoyate jagat yanin namapi chestame Devi Bhagavate Siha Baladraksha Mohana Mahamaya Prayachiha Tasya Visyate Vismagajag Detak Karacham Sasya Prasana Vradanamam Bravati Muktaye Savidya Prama Muktir Heto Bhuta Sanatane Bravati Kana Mutpana Sakam Syascha Chim Divija Yat Prabha Se Sa Devi Yat Svarupa Yadodbhava Tatasvam Srotamichi Hami Tvatvo Brahma Vadem Vala Risirovacha Nityavasa Jaganmutistaya Sarvamidam Tatam Tatalpi Tat Samputir Banuda Soryantam Mama Devanam Kare Siddhyaham Abhavati Sayada Upanate Tada Loke Sabnitya Payabidyate Yoga Nidram Yada Vishnu Yagat Yekarma Vritake Astraya Sesamata Bhatyat Kalapate Bhagavan Prabhi Tadadva Vasarao Godao Viktayao Madao Katabao Vrinuk Karma Malod Butao Hastum Brahmad Mudyayatao Sanabi Kamale Vishnu Stito Brahma Pratajabita Dvestva Tave Grurao Kodagao Prasuptam Cha Jnanadanam Trustava Yoga Nidram Task Tame Kagra Hadeyastata Vibohan Narhaya Harir Hari Netra Kritayalam Visvesvarim Yagitantim Stita Samara Karanim Nidram Bhagavatim Vishnur Ratulam Teja Prabhu Brahmavacha Tvam Svaha Tvam Svadha Tvam Hi Vastakara Sarvarikmika Sudatva Maksare Nitya Tridhya Maratmika Stita Armad Matra Stita Nidya Yanukchara Vistaya Tameva Sandhya Savitri Tvam Devi Janani Para Sveye Taditaryate Visvam Tvaye Tatkriyate Jagat Tvayat Palyat Devi Tvamatyante Cha Sarvada Visratal Stutirupatvam Stitirupacha Palane Tata Samrite Rupate Jagosis Jaganamayi Mahavidya Mahamaya Mahamedya Mahasmriti Mahamohacha Bhavati Mahadevi Mahasurye Praktizam Chasarvya Gunatraya Vibhavani Kalaratrir Maharatir Moharatristya Daruna Tvam Svis Tvam Ishare Tvam Hiris Tvam Budir Bodhalak Shana Laja Putistata Tutristvam Tanir Kantir Chevacha Kadgini Sula Gora Gandhi Charani Tata Sankani Chapini Banabu Sundari Praghaye Yuda Samaya Samatraya Sasa Samaya Bayantvati Sundari Para Paranam Parama Tvameva Parameshvari Yacha Kimchit Kvachid Vastu Sadrid Hila Meke Tasya Sarvasya Ya Shakti Satvam Kim Studyate Tata Yaya Tvadya Jagat Sesta Jagat Payati O Jagat Sopinidra Nitya Kastvam Stotumesvara Vishnu Sarira Ganana Mahishmana Evacha Karitasye Yoto Tasavam Chastuntam Sakamam Beve Satvamitam Prabharver Sever Udare Devi Samstuta Mohanyato Dudasya Vasoro Muda Kutabal Prabodhatam Cha Jagatsvamini Atamachayo Lago Bodhasya Kriya Tamnasya Sanhantu Masao Mahasura Richi Ruvacha Evam Stuta Tada Devi Tamase Tatra Vedasya Vishnu Prabhad Hanadataya Nihantam Madhukatai Bau Netresya Nastika Bahu Hiradyebayas Tatorasya Nigramaya Darsane Tastau Brahmano Vrikrata Janama Ostayau Cha Jagatas Tayamuka Jadana Ekarnave Histainatata Sedarase Chatau Madhukatabau Doramana Vitya Vaparakramau Krodahara Texana Vabatam Brahmanam Janitobia Mau Samstita Tatastabhyam Yoyude Bhagavan Hare Panchavasya Sahasrani Bahau Prabhano Vibra Tava Pyate Balan Matau Mahamaya Vimonitao Uka Vantavaros Vigramiti Kesavam Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Bhagavet Mada Metustau Mama Yavadya Vibhapani Kemyana Veranata Etta Vadi Vitam Mama Risirovacha Vanchito Bayam Mitita Daswaram Apomagyam Jagat Vilokya Tabyam Gadito Bhagavan Kamelek Sara Avam Jahi Naha Yatrove Salina Praripula Risirovacha Tatyet Yoktva Bhagavata Sangha Chakra Gadabrita Kritva Chakrana Vachine Yagane Sirastayo Eva Mesa Samputapana Brahmana Samstuta Svagyam Prabham Vamasya Devyal Bhutao Sneno Vadamite Aing Om Jema Jema Jema. Feel the power of the mantra verses. Feel them within and feel them without. Let them give you the healing, the guidance, and transformation that you need at this moment. I invite you now to take a deep, clearing breath. Slowly open your eyes while I give the final benediction. Om Sana Vavatu Sana Bunaktu Saviryam Kadavavahai Tejasvina Vidhitamastu Ma Vidvijavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jai Ma and Namaste. Hope that was a wonderful meditation for you. If you have questions, feel free to email me at my channel. I'm going to sign off for a few minutes, set up a new broadcast, and then we'll do the puja and satsang and meditation for chapter 2. Hope you can join me. If you're unable to, you can always listen to the recording later. Thank you. Namaste. Blessings always. And Jai Mata Di.